As a person who was just alive in the 1950s, lived through the greatest era known to man, the 1960s, and then watched life in Britain go to shite in the 70s and the 80s, I can tell you what happened to make life in the 21st century so crap. So hang on to your attitude, put down your mobile phones, don't worry, you won't die, and for once just listen to an old git, because here it comes, buddy, and you just might be the wiser for it. I'll try not to use any great big words, and here goes nothing. I was born in 1951, and it was in 1959 that the first TV entered our house. Black and white, no remote, so you had to get off your butt to change the channels, turn it up, etc. But you could do that while you were making up the fire. Back then, the world was a lot more savvy too about waste. The milk was delivered fresh every day, direct to your doorstep. The milk float was battery powered. You rinsed and returned the bottles every day and left them on the doorstep for the milkman to take back. The butcher's van came once a week, that was battery powered too. The baker's van came also. The market gardener had his fields just across the road from us. He delivered fresh fruit and other stuff to the estates around the town via a horse and cart. Don't get me wrong, it was a curiosity then, but he wasn't alone. There were 2 operators in our town doing that. No waste, you see, no pollution. Corona soft drinks were delivered by lorry once a week. Bottles were deposited and returned, so again, no waste. Pubs, all their bottles were the same, deposit and return. None of you throw away wasteful society then. And the crates in the pubs, well, they were wooden, wired together. No plastic there either. Our local shop at the end of our road was packed from floor to ceiling, and he sold the lot. All your groceries plus cheeses cut just as you want them. Bacon sliced to your required thickness. Biscuits in floor-standing tins to be shoveled into paper bags by the pound. Sweets in jars lined the wall. Chocolate bars adorned the counter. Not the shite of today, this was before giant conglomerates took them over, stripped the quality and the size, but kept the names to fool you. And let me say, Cadbury's, since being taken over by the American cheesemaker Kraft, is not even a shadow of its former self. It is shite. Now the people who owned the shop were behind the counter serving you with a smile and a bit of banter. On Saturdays a local lad delivered boxes of groceries to people around the area using a trade bike. Many people had allotments to grow their own fruit and veg as well. As lads, when it was dusk, we'd sometimes nip out scrumping to eat the fruit like apples, strawberries and peas. We never ate too many though, just a few. Didn't want to rob the allotment holders too much. The TV didn't broadcast normal programmes till about 4:30 with toddler shows. Children's hour was 5 till 6. And then the news, which only lasted 5 minutes. No opinion, no outside broadcasts, no shite, just a man reading the facts. Entertainment programmes started after the news. Again, all black and white, of course. No phone, no internet, no computers. If you wanted to make a phone call, you walked about half a mile to the phone box. If you didn't watch the telly, you went out to see friends. We bought records from a record shop downtown. We listened to them in a booth in the shop too. We bought it, we took it home, we owned it. Unlike today, where you just download it to your computer, but it's only a computer file. You don't physically possess anything tangible. Google owns it all. Saturdays was busy downtown, everyone spending cash of course. No banks for the working person then, they didn't want us and the feeling was mutual. You went out, you met your friends and the girls in the coffee bars on a Saturday, played the jukebox and you laughed a lot. Paydays was Thursday for me, and I was usually broke, well, by Tuesday easily. I grew up in a council house and they were excellent. Brick construction, even the interior walls. No cheap studwork walls in these. Our council house had 3 bedrooms, big ones, bigger and better than you get in private housing being sold today, with their boxy bedrooms, boxy everything, with postage stamp gardens that you can't possibly grow anything in. Absolute crap. Our council house was built in 1936. Front room and back room, 12 foot square. Kitchen 12 foot by 8 foot, walk-in pantry, large hallway 15 foot by 6 foot, large wide staircase leading up to 3 really big bedrooms and a bathroom. It had a 15 foot by 17 foot front garden, a backyard 15 by 17 foot with a loo and 2 sheds in there. Well, the loo wasn't inside in those days, yuck. And then a back garden 20 foot by 90 feet. We knew all our neighbours and most families in our street. Our back door was always open with neighbours regularly popping round. Most people today don't even know who lives next door. The rent man came round on his bike every week with a satchel to hold the cash. Rent was dirt cheap and it included the rates. All maintenance was included, so you had nothing to worry about. If tiles came off the roof or a tap leak, you just called the council up. They came out, sent a man on a bike to fix it. Most families grew fruit and veg in the back garden and swapped with each other. It was easy because back gardens backed onto each other then. A real community spirit. Only 2 criteria for getting a council house back then. You had to be married and the man had to be in full-time employment. Young couples put their names down for a house as soon as they got engaged, and that was it. Back then too, council houses were for everyone. Few people owned their own homes, and I was brought up in a council house, as was just about everyone I knew. No stigma back then. Council houses were not looked down upon. I know, that happened later, much later. Back in the 60s and 70s too, all the TV game shows were fun for the contestants. Everybody rooted for them, hoping they would win a prize. The decline started with Labour. It started with Labour giving council houses and flats to young girls who got pregnant and had nowhere to go. The boys had run off, the rules were smashed, and the girls' new pregnancy would get them a home of their own. And so it started the end of council homes being for stable families. Girls got council houses, and no longer were the houses looked after. Washing machines and all manner of rubbish was piled in the gardens. Even a car up on bricks was a fairly common sight as society started to crumble. Instead of making wayward boyfriends pay for their child and the girl and look after her, no action of that kind was taken. As small supermarkets began to open in town, the corner shops were closed or changed to open late at night and on Sundays, when the supermarkets did not. As supermarkets grew in number and size, the battery-driven delivery vehicles were dispensed with. When milk was sold in supermarkets, it was in non-returnable plastic bottles. Soft drinks changed to plastic bottles, all of which were non-returnable, throwaway. Breweries sold their beer in supermarkets in non-returnable glass bottles, and the waste mountain of plastic and glass grew inexorably large. Supermarkets began wrapping all their fruit and veg in plastic bags or shrink-wrapped plastic. Even cucumbers, which nature had already provided with a pretty good protective covering, that got shrink-wrapped too. About now, employees were encouraged to open bank accounts, as many employers didn't want to handle large cash runs to fill wage packets. Instead, crediting your account with wages, you just receiving a pay slip from the office. And the ordinary person's reliance on banks was set into motion. Long-term shopping bags became a thing of the past as the supermarket giants gave free plastic carrier bags at the checkouts. Most people didn't reuse them. When they got home, they just unpacked the shopping and threw the bags in the bin. In the late 70s, the populace were encouraged to buy their own council homes, as many did. For just about, £8,000 or £10,000 or more, you could get a half-decent house. And that mantra grew. It was Mrs. Thatcher who passed a law that people should be able to purchase their council homes, which many people did. Discounts were offered depending on how long you'd lived in the property. The funds received went to the central government and not to local councils. No, the Tory government kept it all. Councils lost the housing stock and the government, they just got the money. Mrs. Thatcher stormed through industry like a rabid tornado, closing down car manufacturing. Partly, though, the fault of the unions being rather silly at times. Coal mines, British Steel and our water and electricity companies and of course our railways. She sold them all or leased them to European private companies. We had no industry. She made London a financial hub and property the game. House prices began to go up, caused by rich Russian oligarchs buying London property. The people were suddenly at the mercy of the markets, and the end of happiness had commenced. Some people were pleased their council house they had bought for £11,000 was now worth £36,000 and rising by the day. The market was insane. Rocketing house prices saw house building struggling to keep up with demand. Queues of young people desperate to buy a home found themselves camping outside sales offices a day or so before the next batch of homes were released. Greenfields were built on as quick as you could say Jack Robinson. Some who had seen their council houses rise in value suddenly started buying second and even third homes at auction to rent out at high prices to those who could not earn enough money to afford to purchase a home anymore. House prices had outstripped the 3.5 times salary rule for mortgages. The only alternative of young and old was to rent and pay most of their wages every month in that rent. Insane and just plain wrong. Greed had arrived in the ordinary working person. All manner of mortgages were offered, 4.5 times salary, even 50-year mortgages to be taken over by your kids when the parents die. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. In the late 1990s, the Big Brother TV show started, where suddenly the contestants were encouraged to be really horrible about each other, turning themselves and the audience viewing at home against someone and being actively encouraged to vote somebody off. Now, The Chase is a game show where the contestants are nasty to the experts and they in turn are downright rude to the contestants, sometimes in unbelievably nasty ways, but TV today has changed. Add to this, the TV is now crammed full of end-of-the-world apocalyptic films and TV series. Vampire and undead characters fill the streaming services along with violent cops and special forces committing all manner of deeds that 50 years ago would not have been allowed. Schools in the US have endured mass shootings. With uncontrolled immigration in the UK, knife and machete crime has increased. In a nutshell, that's it. That's how the world's deteriorated in the last 50-odd years. So don't blame the baby boomers. It was greed in the ordinary folks who caused houses to skyrocket way above the ordinary person's ability to pay. And it's been getting worse ever since. Welcome to the dog-eat-dog world of the 21st century. But don't blame us baby boomers. We loved it just as it was in the 60s, and we didn't change it. It always comes from the people at the top of the food chain, the unseen numpties. So, from me to you, be the difference you want to see in the world, be good, be kind, always help each other, and never do anybody down. Then, my friend, you won't go far wrong. I'll see you later. Take care.